2025 Waynesboro City Council to order.
Mr. Short, will you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Item 2 is the adoption of the meeting agenda. The manager has requested that items 8 and 9 be removed from this evening's agenda, and they will be scheduled for a future meeting. Is there a motion to amend the agenda as requested?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Slow. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? All in favor of amending the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 4-0. Is there a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any
Aye,
opposed?
sorry.
Aye.
I was reading.
Ayes have it 4-0. Item 3 is matters from the mayor, and I did have some notes somewhere.
Is this it? The one I was reading?
The one that Mr. Stokes took from me. So we all had the opportunity to participate in Saturday's parade. It was a large event, I think bigger than what I've seen in the past. But I think it was very successful, and I think folks and kids had a great time. So that was always fun for us to do. Mr. Wood and I did attend last week a work session towards the Main Street America Focus. It was a focus group that particular focus group, I think, was elected officials and some business owners, I believe, was in that particular focus group. A lot of good information out of the surveys that the consultant provided, so it was very interesting. I had an opportunity to attend the Augusta Medical Government and Business Social, and from a personal standpoint, it was a lot of interesting information for me. And I did ask some specific questions. There were some interesting things as it applied to the Saw region, but then I wanted some additional questions to see if they could zero in on some things specific to Waynesboro. So they're working on that, and I will share that with council once I get that information. So. Item 4 is matters from council.
I'd just like to add that the parade was a smashing success. Walked a bit of it with Jim, passing candy out for a minute. Ran into Terry. Kenny was way ahead. Acknowledge Bradley's towing. But I think this is the second year in a row that they've passed out bicycles to the youth along the parade route. Huge success. Absolutely amazing what they're doing in the community. I'd also like to recognize Kiwanis. We're supposed to do groundbreaking. I believe it was today at 4 o'clock, but because of the weather, we're going to postpone it to the spring. But they're very excited about the playground that we're going to be adding at the Lost Springs area. So I didn't want that to fall by the wayside and acknowledge that and know that we're excited as they are about it. So that's all I got.
I just want to double up on what Jeremy says about Bradley Trucking, what they do for the community. I know they do it for Stewart's Draft as well. The amount of generosity that they show by handing out truckloads of bicycles and large toys and stuff to kids along the parade route definitely gives you a little a smile for the season. So a big thank you to Kenny Bradley and his group down there at Bradley's Trucking for what they do for the community.
And I just want to thank and acknowledge our, I'm reminded by the beeping sounds outside of our public works crews that are really doing a great job with the surge of snow that we've had here as of late. So just thank you to them, and as well to our emergency responders for all that they do, keeping us safe, particularly in inclement weather. So just thank y'all for everything.
Thank you, everybody. Item 5 is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it 4-0. Item 6 is to receive the city's annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year 2025. Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The annual comprehensive financial report has been posted to the city's website. We also have paper copies if anybody would like one. I'd be happy to hand out. If you wouldn't like a paper copy, that's okay too. You can find it under the finance section of our website. There are also 2 reports that come along with the annual comprehensive financial report, the I-communication letter and the management letter. So I will turn things over to Ms. Gundon. She is our point person on our audit from Brown Edwards. She'll explain those 2 letters, and then I'll go through a couple of things from the ACFR and some next steps once she's done.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Gundon. I'm a senior audit manager out of our Harrisonburg office, and I spend a majority of my year and my time working on local government, so that's my bread and butter. And I want to thank you all for the opportunity to serve the city, and then also thank Cameron and his team up in finance, along with Vonda and her team over at the school board, for the time that they put into preparing for the audit. It is a drawn-out process. We start in May, and we just recently issued, so it also takes up a bulk of their year addressing our audit requests and our needs. And so we're thankful and appreciative of not only the time that they put in to get ready for the audit, but then also throughout the entire audit process, being very responsive to our requests and our needs. Like I noted, we have completed the audit and the reports. They have not been submitted to the state yet. The state is ultimately most interested in this other report called the transmittal, but everything as a whole with the transmittal and the financials and letters will be submitted, should be tomorrow. So that's well within the deadline, which is Monday, December 15th. Moving on to the financials themselves a little bit, we did issue a clean or unmodified opinion, which is the one that you want. It's the best opinion that you can receive, and that means your financial statements are materially correct in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. If you haven't done so already, I definitely encourage you to read the opinion and go over it. It's only a few pages long, but it does go into more detail explaining what an audit is, and then also more detail to explain what our responsibilities are as an auditor, and then what management's responsibilities are as well. And it's also worth noting that the opinion letter, and then the other letters that we issue, those belong to Brown Edwards in our material. Outside of that, everything else in the financial packet, the MD&A, the statements, the notes, the required supplementary information, other supplementary information, statistical tables, there's a lot in there. All of that belongs to management and is considered management's financials. We also issue a report on internal control. It's in the very back of the financial, in the ACFR, and that goes into detail about your internal controls, and it should be looked at and read and reviewed alongside and in conjunction with the opinion. So while we do talk about your internal controls, that report is not an opinion on your internal controls. It's if we had any internal control deficiencies, they would be identified back there in that report. That report also includes federal and state compliance matters. For FY25, the federal government, OMB specifically, the Office of Management and Budget, they did not release their compliance requirements in time for us to complete all of our federal testing. We have done some, so we will be issuing a separate single audit report, which single audit means our testing over your federal grant. So we'll be issuing a separate report probably in January, that's specific to testing and our procedures with the federal money. We have another letter that we issue. It's called the management letter. So as part of our audit, we do look at internal controls. We get an understanding for the processes that you have in place to safeguard the city's assets. And then through that process, we identify potential risks or riskier areas. And from there, we fine-tune our audit approach and our audit procedures to specifically address those risks. Is what we call a risk-based approach. And that letter also does emphasize and state that we do not issue an opinion on the city's internal controls. And then the last letter that we issue, that is a letter that's called the letter to those charged with governance, which is you all. You all are the governance of the city of Waynesboro. And that includes everything that auditing standards requires us to tell you about. One thing that's different in that letter this year, there was a new accounting standard related to compensated absences. So it just has a blurb about that, but there's more detail in the note disclosures about that standard as well. A big chunk of that letter discusses estimates that are included in your financials. All financials include some element of estimating that go into them, but throughout the audit process, we do look at the city's estimates. Does the methodology appear reasonable? We look at the inputs. And not only that, but is the methodology applied consistently from year to year? Management's not bouncing back and forth with how they come up with their estimates. We're also required to let you know if we came across any difficulties or disagreements with management during the course of the audit, and happy to let you know that we did not have any of that. And then there's also going to be another letter attached to this letter, the letter of those charged with governance. There's a letter attached to that. It's called the Management Representation Letter. And that's going to be on the city's letterhead. And it is a letter from management to us, the auditors. And it is considered the final piece of audit evidence that we receive. And it is 7 pages of items that management is taking formal responsibility for, and they're representing to us about the circumstances and contents of the financial statements. And that's all I have, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
No, ma'am.
Thank you for making the drive.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We gotta be
Definitely be
careful
careful.
going home.
Yeah, careful.
Will do. Yes.
Mr. McCormick?
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So I don't have a ton to add to that, other than, thank you to Rebecca for being here. I think at one point I looked out and counted you plus 2 or 3 others, plus Megan working on it from 2, 3, 4 weeks out of the year, and then off and on for the last 6 months. So we appreciate it. I appreciate my staff, Cliff Burnett, our financial analyst, Kate Kester, our assistant director, Wendy Clements, our county manager, do a lot of work to make sure that they have what they need so that we can get the financials put together. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll spend some time. We've gotten to the point, I think we're up to 5 different entities we have to submit this to now. We've got to submit it to the state. We have to submit it to Emma for our debt disclosures. I'll forget a couple. We have to submit it to the Department of Criminal Justice Services, to VDOT. So we'll work on those submissions over the next couple of weeks, and then once we get the single audit wrapped up, we'll submit it to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse as well. I don't think it has to come back to council again for the CFA. That's the federal audit. Assuming there are no issues with the CFA, we wouldn't bring it back. We'll just post it as an additional report on our website. Not to boil this down to just a couple of pages, but what council's going to probably be most interested in as we work through is the unassigned fund balance. That's going to be in your Exhibit 3. And then also going to be that we were able to refill all of our reserves. Your safety net policy is fully filled. Your unassigned fund balance, which has held steady for the last couple of years, ended up right at $2 million, $1,985,000. That's the money that we use to keep our capital plan moving forward. Also, the money we use to do our small capital. We'll continue to talk about the audit and what those numbers mean. The main thing is that we can rely on them, the council can rely on them, and the citizens and the agencies that we submit this to can rely on them. So if you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. If not, we'll get, we've fulfilled the requirement of the presentation this evening, and I'll get the locality report signed and then submit it to the state this week.
Any questions for the council?
Just that we appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you.
No action is required at this time. Item 7 is to hold a public hearing to consider introducing an ordinance amending City Code, Chapter 98, zoning ordinance, Article 4.6.7, car washes to change the orientation requirements for service bay door openings. Mr. Hamp.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of council, So this is this request is submitted by an applicant, and this relates to zoning text amendment as it pertains to our entry corridors and car washes. Council considered a similar request, not this request, but a similar request previously, and that request was denied. Subsequently, the applicant resubmitted a more specific or a similar specific request. And you might recall what happened in the initial consideration. The applicant's request was blended with some staff recommendations on the topic, and ultimately the ordinance did not pass. And so this is a second consideration of the applicant's intentions and requests and desires exclusively. And it pertains only to car washes and only in the corridor overlay district. So the applicant is requesting an amendment to section 98-4.6.7 car washes, as that pertains to the orientation of car wash bay doors within the city's entrance corridors. Applicant is working with a potential car wash client for one of the remaining parcels at the Waynesboro Marketplace. That's off of Rosser Avenue, and you'll get a site orientation map subsequently. Zoning ordinance requirements and site limitations will not allow for siting of a car wash at this site as the ordinance is currently written. The site is adjacent to a residentially zoned parcel, and again, within the Rosser Avenue entrance corridor. So those are the key considerations. The proposed amendment, well, first the current language, and we'll highlight in red, all service bay doors or openings shall face away from adjacent residential uses and from corridors designated in 98-3.3.2B. Applicant proposes new language that states all service bay doors or openings shall, one, face away from adjacent residential uses, so that condition is preserved in the recommended amendment or the requested amendment, and two, away from corridors designated in 98-3, unless buffered from the corridor by another existing commercial development. And what this essentially seeks to get at is that in the depth of an entry corridor, you have some second-tier development opportunities that are essentially buffered from view from that entry corridor drive or pedestrian activity. And in that regard, the orientation of the bay doors is mitigated and is not a detriment as it would be if it was in that first row immediately adjacent, or first tier immediately adjacent to the corridor. Purpose of the ordinance was to mitigate the visual impacts of bay doors on entrance corridors and residential areas. The applicant submitted an application to amend this section of the ordinance earlier in the year, and ultimately that amendment was or did not pass by City Council. And one of the reasons why was that it was regarded as too subjective and overly broad. So again, the proposed language, again, and also I'd like to stress this applies only to car washes and second tier development. This gives you an idea of the entry corridor. This Rosser Avenue labeled here, Windy Grove Drive, and then this is Tiffany, and then this area here is Waynesboro Marketplace. And the shaded or hatched areas indicate the depth of the overlay corridor and the associated additional zoning regulations. You can see there, this is the subject parcel. Texas Roadhouse, Sheets. So clearly a second tier development. Like additional businesses for orientation. This gives you a visual of the location. You can see in the back there is where the development is proposed. So in conclusion, proposed amendment relies on existing commercial development to mitigate the visual impacts of car wash bay doors, likely affects a very limited number of parcels, and commercial development in front of the car wash and its bay doors would mitigate the visual impacts as the corridor is currently developed. Conclusion, the Planning Commission recommended by a vote of 5-0 approval of the text amendment. And I think I've covered everything there. Leslie will be here. Tonight you'll hold a public hearing on the application. Ms. Tate will be present in the January 12th meeting, at which you would be scheduled to provide final consideration. I'm happy to answer questions, but obviously Ms. Tate can probably do a better job than I can of that.
Questions from Mr. Hamp?
Let's see, Cameron, anybody signed up to speak other than that? Yeah. Okay, so the applicant is here. No, speak or, that's okay.
I hereby open the public hearing. Applicant wishes to speak.
Good evening, Seth Roderick, Monteverde Engineering and Design Studio, serving as a representative of Hang Ten Car Wash in this application. Of course, this application is broad-based for the text, so it is conducive for our efforts in obtaining the development rights at the parcel that's been designated. But of course, it is broad-based and does apply to the entire city. So we just kind of want to make sure that distinction. Happy to answer questions as they relate to our specific development. But I would like to just kind of highlight, you all saw the imagery that was on the screen showing the depth of this corridors. And that's really the crux of play here. You know, with that 500-foot depth, most of your commercial lots, when it's pad development type of commercial, those lots are going to be sized generally somewhere between 250 to 300 feet deep. So by the time you add in half of the right-of-way, you still end up with this 100-foot plus that kind of extends into that second row commercial, and therefore prohibits the ability to have car wash bay doors facing the street, even if they are 300-400 feet back. And that seems to be probably a little bit more than what the original intent of the language is there for. Trying to protect those protected corridors from the visual impact of the bay doors. When you are 300, 400 feet back, that visual impact is obviously quite diminished. And so the intent of this language, hearing the feedback that we got from the last submittal being too broad, this is really just trying to narrow that focus down into what we believe is really the kind of the crux of the issue, and that is that second tier development. And the language was chosen in a way that I felt was most protective of the corridor by preserving, not just allowing it for second row commercial, but when there's an existing commercial development in front of us. So that way you're further buffered. You're buffered by the distance, but you also are buffered by this physical presence of some other commercial development. And so while having a bay door right up on the frontage, there's an obvious visual impact. A bay door on the backside of the sheets, much less so, right? It's not really contributing to any kind of what I would deem a negative impact to that corridor. So that language was crafted in a way to, again, really hit the notion of that second tier commercial development while really keeping that narrow focused, where we're not worried about a larger, broader impact in a negative way that could be misapplied throughout the city. The only other thing I'll add is that I think as an ancillary benefit to the change is that if we are concerned about the visual impact of car washes just in general, by opening up the door for second tier and making that a little bit easier, it puts less pressure on the front row commercial. And so, you know, it's just an easier path to travel in that fashion. So I think that is kind of a, you know, further protection. If you open the door one direction, it kind of shuts in the other naturally a little bit. So with that, happy to answer any questions, again, as it relates to our specific development or in relation to the way the language was crafted and presented in front of you now.
Questions?
I'm pretty sure, even with the wording, that the necessary buffers for that type of business are still in place. So you still have to do, you know, shrubbery and different types of intermediate buffers in between. So it's not just a hard wall of doors.
Correct, and that particular parcel has a built-in buffer to the residential next to it, so there's a vegetative screen. I can't remember all the particulars of that, but it's a mixture of hardwood, evergreens, and shrubbery that prevent a visual screen between it and the residential next door.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody? Nobody? Everybody close the public hearing. Is there a motion to introduce the ordinance changing the orientation requirement for service bay doors?
Also moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. This ordinance will receive final consideration at the January 12th regular business meeting. Item 10 is to consider adopting a resolution accepting new roads into the Virginia Department of Transportation urban maintenance inventory. Mr. Hampton.
Yes, unless council requires extensive explanation, this is an annual exercise in which the city accepts into its official inventory and then submits to VDOT for urban maintenance funding. Those new roads that have been constructed through development or identified by our staff as otherwise qualifying for urban maintenance funds. And again, this is a little exercise that we do each year to make sure that our funding that we receive from the state keeps pace with our growth of road inventory.
Any questions? Still? Okay. Is there a motion, thank you, Ms. Hamp, is there a motion to adopt a resolution accepting new roads into the VDOT urban maintenance inventory?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Lowe. Is there a second?
No second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion?
Yeah, as an employee of the Virginia Department of Transportation, I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Short. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Short's abstain.
Abstention.
Ayes have it, 3-0. Item 11 is to consider adopting a resolution granting Shentel the right to install facilities in the city's right-of-way. Ms. Michelson, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. As the council may be aware, under the Virginia Franchise Act, any party who wants to put any facilities within the city's right-of-ways needs to get the permission of the city. If that, either by lease, franchise, deed, conveyance, or easement, whichever, is longer than 5 years, the city has to go through a notice and bid process. Well, Shenandoah Cable Television, known as Shentel, desires to install broadband fiber optic facilities within the city's right-of-way for Northrop Grumman, I can't say it, site, and the timing is critical on Northrop Grumman's part, that they'd like to start installation of these facilities before the notice and bid process timing can occur. So in that event, what we've done is provided an agreement allowing Shentel to install these facilities for it's a 1-year term. And that will give us enough time to work through the franchise agreement, to go through the notice and bid process, and also not hold up Northrop Grumman and their desire to get the broadband facilities installed. So we've drafted a draft resolution and agreement that sets forth the terms that provides this 1-year installation, and during that time that they will enter into a franchise agreement. So we will bring this back forward with council after notice and the public bid process. But like I said, we just wanted to kind of start now and then follow up with the franchise agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion to adopt a resolution granting and authorizing Shentel to install facilities in the city right-of-way?
Move that we adopt the resolution. I move that we adopt the resolution.
Thank you, Mrs. Stowe. Is there a second?
No second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 4-0. Item 12 is to hold a public hearing and consider adopting the ordinance appropriating $5,675,774 and amending the FY '26 budget. Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. This item was appropriately introduced at your most recent city council meeting. It was advertised in the News Virginian on Wednesday, November 26th, to hold the public hearing this evening. It has two main components. One of them is the encumbrance roll forward, which is part of the 2025 ACFA process. Those are purchase orders that were in place at the end of June for work that could not be completed before the end of June. The amount of that is $4,134,679 across all the funds that need to be reappropriated. And then there are miscellaneous other grants, donations, and fund balance uses of $1,541,000. It's mainly comprised of $1,131,000 of school board appropriations, which broken down further is about $540,000 for grants, and then fund balance usage for insurance reserves and site acquisitions of $591,000. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now, or if you want to hold a public hearing and then ask questions, I'd be happy to answer them then.
Let's hold the public hearing first.
I hereby open the public hearing. I hereby close the public hearing. This ordinance was introduced at the previous meeting. If there are no additional questions or discussion, I'll call for a vote.
I have questions. The appropriations for the land acquisition, is that something for the school board that 100% is going to be appropriated one way or the other, or is it something that if we tabled that we could discuss it?
So I think that you could, I mean, Cameron, you've had the conversation with the attorney. We think that you can amend the ordinance.
We can break that out if you'd like to continue or table and wait till a future meeting, or break it out. And that's probably would be the easiest thing to do, would be to separate the encumbrances, the insurance roll forwards, and the grant appropriations into one section, and then the council will pass that this evening, and then do the land acquisition in a separate vehicle and take it to the next, continue it to the next meeting. And answer any questions throughout. If we'd like language for that, I'm sure I can help with that.
I just know we have a joint session coming up where we're supposed to have conversations with the school board, and I'm not comfortable. No, I'm comfortable appropriating it after we've had discussions. I'm not comfortable appropriating it before we've had discussions. But I'm one of 5, so I will leave that to my colleagues to decide whether they think it's just a better move to vote on all of it or to isolate it out and hold off doing it.
Yeah, I certainly respect, your position and perspective. I think, my interest would be to call the motion.
So, and Melissa, if I stumble, go ahead.
Are you looking at her?
Well, I was gonna say
So I don't know if this is helpful, but a couple of pieces of information that aren't included in the packet are that the site acquisition price is $495,000, so that gives you a clear idea of that number. I think the school board is scheduled to, or the public schools are scheduled to close on January 6th. And a general statement was made that the school board will realize, have not realized yet, but will realize sufficient revenue to offset or refill the fund balance expended on this acquisition. I think in terms of purpose, this information also was not included in the packet. The potential purposes include either instructional space for CTE, probably, or division-wide operational space. That have not determined the space programming for that. I don't know if that's helpful to you or not.
So I don't think that, to Mr. Sloat's point, there's time for that to be discussed in the joint session in January. Or what you have provided, there's going to be more to that in a joint discussion in January. Am I saying that correctly?
Well, on the timeline, they're gonna have closed before the joint session, so
Absolutely.
So I don't want to insert myself in the middle of something here, but I think a couple of things. One is, it is true that it doesn't seem likely that we will be able to schedule the joint meeting before the current stated closure date. It is also true that we really did not contemplate this topic as being part of the agenda for that, but we certainly can do two things. One is, I would imagine you might be able to move a closing date. I would also imagine that we could put something else on the agenda. But given that we're now looking at the second week of January before we'll get together on a joint basis, that's considerable ways into the future. So I guess in short, we could propose that we could seek whether the schools could change their closing date. Two, we could try to schedule something in advance of what looks like to be a mid-January joint meeting. Again, I don't know whether that's helpful to you or not.
So fully understanding the concerns of Mr. Sloat, I have some concerns. However, I think that we press with a vote.
fair enough.
This is a difficult one, and from my position, or from my thinking, because I agree with Mr. Sloat. I also agree with the need of the property for the school. Is there any kind of wording that we can put in there on, because, forgive me if I'm misunderstanding, we're appropriating this money for the school so they can go through with the purchase of this building, correct?
Correct.
So we're kind of, I don't know if I'm using the right word, so we're fronting them the money for the building, but they have other sources of income to cover the cost in the long term.
Actually, they have their own money currently to cover the cost, but their own money is fund balance, which requires the council's appropriation.
Yeah,
It's part of their 42.5%.
Yes.
okay. All right.
It's kind of unusual in that regard.
It is, and our job as stewards of the taxpayer money, I want to make sure that every T is crossed and I is dotted to make sure that it's, that we're doing the right thing.
And I appreciate that perspective as well. I would just offer that I don't think that we're going to have a whole lengthy conversation with the school board in January. And I don't think, as it relates to this transaction, my opinion would change before or after that. I think it's
Bad timing.
it's I think not ideal timing, but opportunity sometimes presents itself in the most curious
True.
time. So I think it's one of those, and also it's a from a conceptual level, it's been something that's been thought of for over a decade. So it's not like it's a sprung up idea. It's just how the opportunity presented itself.
It's going to be a benefit for the school, and most importantly, a benefit for the kids in our community.
Absolutely.
So we want to do what's right
The timing is not ideal.
for them, but the timing's not ideal.
Right.
Okay.
Any other comments? So, all in favor, say aye.
We need a motion and a
I'm
second.
sorry. Do I have a motion?
Oh, yeah, but
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
We have one from the 5,675,000 should still be on the table then, shouldn't it?
So
From
the-
last meeting.
introduced and
Oh.
seconded the last.
We had from the last meeting?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So where?
My apologies.
So we don't need, we've already got a motion.
Okay, we already have a motion. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it 3-1.
Respectfully.
Gotcha, 100%.
Item 13 is consider authorizing city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding related to the operation of the Stanton Augusta Waynesboro Animal Services Center. Mr. Ham.
Yes, sir. Since 2011, Waynesboro, Stanton, and Augusta County have jointly operated an animal shelter in order to meet our municipal obligations under the Code of Virginia. Current shelter, actually, this is dated now. The former shelter was located at 1001 Mount Tory Road in Lyndhurst. Since this staff report was penned, we've opened the new shelter, which is located at 1011 Lee Highway in Verona. Both the former and current shelters' governance is informed by an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between the three localities. The new location has a different ownership structure, and a new operational MOU should be established in that new structure. Previously, the three localities owned the property jointly. In this case, it's not possible for joint ownership, and the county retains ownership and allows the regional shelter use at the location. The MOU again informs governance and details how expenses are shared and how we operate generally at a governance level. Key elements of the new 30-year term MOU include confirms capital contribution by member jurisdictions, and Waynesboro's was $1.1 million, or will be about $1.1 million. It establishes a process by which the county, if determined to expel a city or cities, would provide notice and obligated repay capital contributions at a pro rata share, decreasing by 3.33% annually. It maintains a governance structure of directors, which are the chief administrative officers for the member localities, and provides that Stanton and Waynesboro will pay a 4% fee split evenly to Augusta County for expenses associated with its service as fiscal agent and accompanying administrative functions. For example, human resources, purchasing, accounting, and maintenance and IT security. Regarding the former shelter, that real estate will be sold and improvements will be sold, and the sale credited to each respective member according to the usage percentage, and the members recommend that go into a fund for maintenance and repair at the new shelter. Council tonight has asked for the city manager to authorize the city manager to execute the MOU. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
I would just, I'm not inclined to support it for a few reasons. One, I really think an MOU should have been established prior to advancing the project. I feel that doing this once the facility has been opened is a little peculiar. Of course, I don't open animal shelters every other year either. So I'd also say that to my understanding, I think, and confirm of the city manager, the fee to be split evenly between the city of Stanton and the city of Waynesboro was not previously collected when we were the fiscal agent. The entire time that we were having the fiscal agent.
That's correct.
That's correct. So I find it difficult to believe that between both municipal operations, that 4% of the time for HR, 4% of the time for purchasing, 4% of the time for accounting, 4% of the time for maintenance, and 4% of the time for IT in Augusta County is then going to be dedicated to this new facility that, again, is supposed to be a partnership. I don't have an aversion to establishing that at some future date, but I think given that everybody else got a free pass for a really long time, I just don't think it's right or appropriate for us to have to lean into that. the other aspect of it of expelling a city or cities from it because of, again, finding out the land structure of this thing after the daggone building's open, or not having consider it, I think is bad form. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality, and I can appreciate the complexity of the ownership and the existing leases and uses and how it creates that challenge, the ability to subdivide the property. But I also know it takes, if we were to get notice, or some future council were to get notice of a change in ownership or a change in use and to be expelled, this community can't go and pivot within 2 years. It's going to take more than 2 years to establish a second facility or administrative contract with an SPCA or some other type of user. So again, I think it's just, and I'd expressed this to the city manager when this was first being considered, and it looks, and I'm sure there's good reasons. I mean, probably the county said no, as to some of the comments and that I had offered, but I can also say no. So.
Did the county respond to Mr. Short's?
I raised the question of the notice requirement, and they said no.
Okay. Any other comments? Is this something that could be tabled?
Yes, absolutely, it can be tabled.
I think it's the direction we ought to go. Let's discuss it more. Not something we should decide right now.
So is there a motion to table item 13?
I'll make the motion to table item 13.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So all in favor of motioning item 13, authorizing the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding related to the operation of the Stanton Augusta Waynesboro Animal Shelter Services Center, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll table. Ayes have it, 4-0. Item 14 is consider appointing an individual to the Economic Development Authority for an unexpired term ending August 31, 2027. Is there a motion to appoint, what's the name, Michael Strait?
Chris.
Chris Strait to the Economic Development Authority.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. Sorry for hitting the gavel. Item 15, communication correspondence calendar, Mr. Hamp.
Yes, sir. I have a couple things. I wanted to thank the members for attending this evening. I recognize that our weather is challenging, but I'm grateful to be able to have the meeting. I want to point out a couple of things. One, today was the last day that taxes were due, and I think that we endeavored to make the facility available to our citizens to, for those who hadn't paid as of yet, to come in and make those payments. And so it seemed appropriate to go ahead and conduct elected and administrative business this evening. Plus, I think by having the meeting, it acknowledges, as you did, the fact that we have a number of public safety and public works agencies who work through the inclement weather. And so while we don't want to take irresponsible risks with folks' safety, at the same time, we don't want to unnecessarily cancel or postpone meetings when we're able to have them. Additionally, this is the last scheduled meeting for the calendar year, and we did have several items that were timely in terms of a scheduled public hearing and working on a attentive manner to an applicant related to development. So thank you for your attendance, and thanks to staff for being present this evening as well. That's all I have. Oh, excuse me, I have one more thing. So one of the items, in order to kind of condense the meeting that we removed from the agenda, was the economic development presentation. And I'm a little bit disappointed that we did that. I think their staff are disappointed too. We Part of that presentation was to highlight some video promotional and marketing work that we've recently completed, and we were excited to preview that for the council before it was released to the public. Additionally, we had a promotional video, I think related to the industrial park that recently won an award at a state level. We were excited to share that. Because we're not going to be together for a while, we're going to figure out a way to make that material available to you online. And unfortunately, we're going to start to release that to the public, and we regret that we weren't able to have a sort of a special first viewing for the council. But the staff are understandably proud of that work and excited to continue to build the image of our community.
Thank you, Mr. Hamp. Item 16, citizen comment.
No one has signed up to speak.
Item 17 is a closed session as requested by the city manager as authorized by sections 2.2-3711A8 and 29 of the Virginia Code. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to recess into a closed meeting in order to consult with the city attorney and to discuss the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders and offerers and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract regarding the Leggett Building, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the city's bargaining position or negotiating strategy, which requires a provision of legal advice by the city attorney as authorized by section 2.2-3711A, 8, and 29 of the Virginia Code.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Discussion, as far as a roll call vote, Mr. Hamp, Mr. McCormick, I'm sorry.
For you, Mr. Lee, Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Councilman Short,
Aye.
Councilman Wood,
Aye.
Councilman Slade.
Aye.
We're in closed session.
The ayes have it.
Is there a motion to return to open session and certify the closed session?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the following resolution. Whereas the City Council of Waynesboro has convened in a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with provisions of Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires certification by this City Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Waynesboro hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters were lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the City Council of Waynesboro.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? That requires a roll call vote. Mr. McCormick?
Mayor Lee,
Aye.
Councilman Short,
Aye.
Councilman Wood,
Aye.
Councilman Sloat.
Aye.
We are in, back in open session. Item 18, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Thank you.
First, whichever you need.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sloat. We are adjourned. You got it.